Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description. You called me, Kakashi-sensei? A tall blonde man in an Anbu mask appeared in the office of the 6th Hokage, Hatake Kakashi. Oh, is it you? Yes, I called. I still haven't seen your report on the last mission in the Land of Wind. Despite the fact that the blonde's face was hidden by a mask, the Hokage knew perfectly well that the best Anbu only stretched his lips into a familiar smile in response to his remark. You didn't call me to scold me for a late report, did you? Did something happen? The Anbu took off his mask and looked questioningly at the 6th. One of the reconnaissance teams found another Orochimaru laboratory, but they themselves do not dare to go there. They say, Biju chakra is blowing from there. Here is your task. Find the source, and if it is some kind of weapon, neutralize it, then report on the form. Hatake looked closely at his student, and unconsciously tried to find in him at least something that would remind him of that noisy, eccentric boy whom he saw for the first time at the team distribution. But the harder he tried, the more clearly he saw in the once stupid Jinchuriki his late sensei. Orochimaru? That's strange, isn't the snake loyal to Konoha now? Did you request information from Yamato Taicho? Uzumaki asked in a businesslike tone. Yes, we sent the falcon, but there is no answer yet. One way or another we need to figure this out. That's why I called you. After all, you understand everything related to the Biju much better than others. I'm worried about this matter. If someone who previously supported Madara's ideas finds out that there is unclaimed tailed beast chakra left in the world, this could lead to another conflict. Kakashi tiredly squeezed his temples, trying to remember what else he had missed. Don't worry, Sensei, I'll take care of everything, the Anbu responded. You should rest, otherwise I'll complain about you to Sakura-chan. You'll know what it's like to work around the clock. Naruto grinned, immediately jumping out the window. What a bastard, Kakashi admired. And yet Naruto is Naruto. No matter how fate tries to break him, he will not give in, will not retreat, and in the end, he will achieve his goal, no matter what. This is both frightening and makes you admire him even more. Yes, the war had changed him. It couldn't help but change him. He had become tougher, more collected, more calculating, but still it couldn't completely change the fact that the Jinchuriki had always been, perhaps, too bright for the work of a shinobi. And even more surprising was that Uzumaki had become a first-class Anbu, a shadow-hidden killer, faceless. 8 years have passed since the Fourth World War, and the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, a demon boy hated by all of Konohagakure, has become a hero to the entire world. Many died in that war. Uzumaki couldn't save everyone, despite his promise. But it was thanks to him that the war was won. The world got a second chance. Returning to a peaceful life was difficult. The fighting affected everyone. While the shinobi were fighting Madara and Jubi, many criminals appeared who were not afraid of being caught. So after the end of the war, instead of resting, the ninja had to catch Nuknin. Tsunade Senju retired only after she had restored relative order by ceding the Hokage's seat to Hatake Kakashi. The Council of Elders was abolished, as the survivors were accused of abusing their power. Despite the skepticism of the older generation, the Shinobi Union was preserved. The case of Uchiha Itachi was made public and the elder brother Sasuke was declared a hero who gave his life for his native village. The last of the Uchiha was forgiven and a year later returned to the village, taking a place in the Anbu squad. Now Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke are the strongest shinobi in the world. Naruto became the captain of the Anbu squad, Kurama remained with his Jinchuriki, the rest of the Bijus scattered around the world or returned to their Nine Tails. All those who were in this war will do everything to ensure that something like this never happens again. The shinobi world choked on its own blood. No one wanted a repeat of this story. Half an hour later, the war hero left Konoha. He had about a day to escape, but for a trained fighter, this was a piece of cake. What do you think, Kurama? What did the Sannin do there? Naruto asked almost a day later, approaching a small mountain range. The internal dialogue did not interfere with the young shinobi deftly jumping from branch to branch. Not the slightest idea. Even though Orochimaru is a psycho, one cannot help but admit that he is just as much of a genius. The Nine-Tailed growled discontentedly. I can't help but agree. To some extent we won with his help, After all, it was he who resurrected the Kage. Uzumaki grinned, remembering something of his own. It seems to be here. Naruto became serious again. Are you here already? We weren't expecting you so soon. Another masked ANBU appeared in front of the captain as if out of nowhere. I decided that this was a serious matter, since we were talking about Bijou. Tell me, what did you dig up here? The Jinchuriki frowned. Yesterday, during a skirmish with the missing Nin from IWA, one of the earthen techniques exposed the halls of an underground shelter. After we dealt with the criminals, our shinobi found out that this is an abandoned laboratory, presumably one of Orochimaru's shelters, and apparently it was abandoned before Suna and Oto's attack on Konoha. We were able to examine only the outer halls. The laboratory is sealed with chakra similar in structure to the Bijou chakra. We are not able to remove the seals ourselves. The ANBU finished his report. Well, the Hokage's order was clear: identify the source of the chakra and destroy it if necessary, so we'll open it up. Lise replied. After all, his service in ANBU had not been in vain. No one dares to question the captain's orders unless he himself allows it. Lise-san, we looked around the area and didn't find anyone. 2 more masked men appeared from the gray cloud of smoke. Okay, stay here, and I'll go inside. Uzumaki Fox nodded. Descending into the hole, he looked around. At the same time, Kurama scanned the surrounding space. The endless corridors of the stone labyrinth stretched for many miles. Finally, having quickly overcome the path to the closed part of the dungeons, he stopped. The complex of seals guarding this place was truly impressive and was actually fueled by a mixture of chakra from several tailed beasts, including Kurama. So, what did this psycho do here? Uzumaki was angry for the umpteenth time, trying to figure out the unknown constructions. You wouldn't even dream of such a thing in your worst nightmare. Even Thickbrow doesn't do such tricks after a bottle of sake. Maybe that's why they abandoned the lab? Snorted Kyubi. They sealed it up when they were drunk, and when they sobered up they didn't remember what they'd done here. Quiet, Rug, don't bother me, I've almost unraveled it, Naruto hissed. Jubi! Naru, you're still an idiot, even though you're the captain. The demon growled phlegmatically. Why is that? Naruto got angry again. Maybe if you're so smart, you could try to break this damn seal yourself, huh, flea-dwelling place? Watch and learn, genius! The fox's smug voice made Uzumaki shudder, but he still gave up control. As soon as control was established, the 9-tailed fox began to pump its energy out of the seal. As soon as one of the components left the seal, it immediately collapsed. Couldn't you have said it right away? You see, I'm racking my brains here, and now the demon shuddered at the blonde's tone. Whose fault is it that you didn't think of it yourself, mortal? And then sometimes it's good for you to rack your brains, not always to wave your fists? Snorted the fox, continuing to anger his Jinchuriki. If earlier this gave him a chance to escape, now it simply amused the strongest of the Bijou. In the center of the hall where Uzumaki found himself, there were 2 obelisks, each at least 2 meters high, and next to them was a pedestal, in the center of which was a large hemisphere, inscribed with Fuinjutsu seals. Together, the obelisks and the pedestal formed an isosceles triangle. Along the right wall of the hall there were tables and shelves with various flasks mixed with scrolls. Apparently the shelter was abandoned in a hurry, or the owner was simply not particularly careful in organizing the workspace. One way or another, judging by the layer of dust and cobwebs, no one had been here for at least a couple of decades. Kurama, what do you think? Even though I studied the Uzumaki clan's Fuin, many of these seals are unknown to me, Naruto muttered thoughtfully, approaching the strange pedestal. The hemisphere seemed smooth as glass, and glowed from the inside with a matte light. Of all the seals, the shinobi made out only a few. What nonsense! This is the first time I've seen such a combination. Even in Yuzushiogakure there was nothing like this, the Jinchuriki muttered discontentedly. The ANBU captain slowly moved his hand over the hemisphere without touching it. Suddenly a weak current ran through his fingers, after which energy threads ran between the obelisks, connecting them together. Idiot! Kyubi roared as the concentration of chakra in the air began to increase. When the glow between the columns reached a blindingly bright point, a piercing whistle appeared in the air, but suddenly it all ended. And after the deafening whistle, an even more deafening silence came. Naru, it seems we have problems, the nine-tailed came to his senses faster than his Jinchuriki. Immediately after the demon's words, a muffled roar was heard. "Watch out!" The tailed beast's call, mixed with intuition, made the Jinchuriki blindly jump to the side, which saved him from the blow of a clawed paw. After dodging the blow a few more times and still squinting blindly, Uzumaki jumped higher, grabbing onto a ceiling beam, and from there, he was finally able to examine the threat more closely. The threat had a flat wolf-like muzzle with deep-set, bright yellow eyes, a lean, brown-furred body with disproportionately long limbs. "What is this?" the Anbu blurted out involuntarily. "One of the experiments? There are no cells or biochambers here, I think? And the lab was completely sealed, I'm sure. So where did it come from?" "How should I know? But you know, something tells me that Orochimaru has nothing to do with it," Kyubi noted, watching the creature dart from corner to corner, periodically growling at the dinner hanging from the ceiling. "Why is that? After all, it was he who was churning out all sorts of monsters left and right from anyone who came to hand and who wasn't a particularly valuable exhibit." "Yes, but the Sannin always cleaned up after himself so that his little monsters, Kami forbid, wouldn't eat everyone in the surrounding villages. Not out of humanity, of course, but still, it would attract unwanted attention to the snake," the nine-tailed grinned. "Just kill the poor beast already, so that it doesn't suffer." He couldn't stand it after another attempt by the monster to get to the Jinchuriki. "Okay, don't growl, furry one, in any case, we can't let him get out of here." After a few well-aimed kunai, the creature fell to the stone floor, thrashed in agony, and went quiet a second later. And the next moment, the creature's outline began to float, its disproportionate body began to melt, and then form anew. And now, lying on the grinding plates, was no longer a wolf-like creature, but a completely ordinary person. "Is this a man?" Naruto came closer, examining an already middle-aged man with a dark tangle on his head instead of hair. His half-naked body was all covered in scars, thin and pale. He looked as if he had just crawled out of the forest after 6 months of seclusion, although perhaps that was true. But the most noticeable were 3 parallel scars crossing his chest from his right shoulder to his left hip. "I thought it was a mad beast, but now I understand that it is a man who for some reason became a beast," Kurama muttered thoughtfully. "It reminds me of what happens to Jinchuriki if they lose control over the tailed beast. But what's strange is that he has a decent level of chakra, somewhere around the level of a chunin, but the channels are poorly developed and mostly only in his hands. And he is also poorly developed physically, in general, he hardly looks like a shinobi." "Really, what kind of shinobi is this, who can't even concentrate chakra in different parts of the body? You said that he is at the level of chunin?" Uzumaki asked in surprise, interrupting the fox. "And what does this mean in your opinion? Someone tried to artificially make a shinobi out of an ordinary person. And could this creature have appeared because of these obelisks? An unexpected conclusion, but perhaps you are right. I think we need to deliver the body to our smart guys in Konoha for study. Maybe they will find something interesting." Shinobi, while examining his find, committed an unforgivable stupidity. He got distracted. And that is why he was unable to sense the threat. Suddenly the columns lit up again, and electric discharges ran between them, and again a piercing whistle was heard, tearing apart sensitive hearing. A bright flash and a loud noise disoriented the shinobi, after which consciousness left the blonde. Consciousness returned slowly, in flashes. It throbbed painfully, not wanting to return to its rightful place. Cursing his carelessness that had led him to this state, Uzumaki abandoned his unsuccessful attempts to open his eyes. An attempt to move also did not lead to the desired result. The body refused to obey, staging a strike. "Kurama, can you help me?" Even thoughts were difficult. Listening to his feelings, he realized with horror that he did not feel the nine-tailed. The awareness of this enveloped his mind with sticky tentacles. The blonde was too accustomed to the company of the strongest of the Biju. After a while, Naruto managed to detach himself from the pain and focus on getting into the subconscious. Finding himself in a familiar corridor, the blonde wandered in a familiar direction. The huge hall, which once housed the nine-tailed demon's cage, had not changed at all, but the demon was gone. "Kurama!" The blonde's cry was reflected many times from the stone walls and echoed through the old corridors. Then in response, the echo brought a muffled roar. Uzumaki, hearing this sound, turned sharply and rushed headlong towards the source of the sound, where, as it seemed to him, the demon was. Finally, he saw a dimly lit hall ahead, stopped abruptly and looked around carefully. "Kurama, are you there?" Naruto shouted again. "Naruto?" The muffled voice sounded genuinely surprised. The young shinobi looked around, trying to find the fox with his eyes, but he couldn't see anything except stonework. "Why can't I see you, but I can hear you?" "How would I know?" "I can hear you too and feel your chakra, but I can't see you." Judging by his voice, the nine-tailed was irritated by his lack of understanding. "Look around, what do you see?" "A round hall with 8 columns around the perimeter, rough masonry with large gaps between the blocks, an entrance arch behind the back." "I have the same thing, but I see the arch in front of me." "So, it turns out that we look at each other, but do not see?" The surprise emanating from the blonde was almost tangible. After a long time of thinking about what had happened, they still couldn't come up with anything. And because of their thoughts, they didn't immediately hear the rumble spreading through the stone labyrinth. "What's going on?" Naruto was the first to wake up, looking around excitedly. At first he thought his eyes were swimming, but then he realized that something was happening to the surrounding space. "You see it too?" the demon asked, amazed, continuing to watch the space around them split, slowly at first, then faster and faster. First the walls disappeared, giving way to what could not even be called emptiness. There was nothing there, as if a snow-white sheet had been placed on top of something covered in writing. Then the floor began to disappear behind the walls, until finally the sound of breaking glass was heard, somewhere in the center of the room. "Your mother!" Kurama suddenly screamed, and Uzumaki, turning towards the sound, saw his red-haired lodger, who, nervously waving all 9 tails, was disgustedly shaking shards of glass off his fiery skin. The fox finished with the glass and then looked deeply into the eyes of his Jinchuriki. Now both of them were in a completely white space, with nothing in it except the two of them. "What happened?" Uzumaki asked, looking around and seeing only emptiness. "How would I know that?" "True, I have one guess. Either something happened to your body, or you died, but then I don't understand why I'm still with you and not gone to rebirth," the fox muttered, closing his eyes. "What happened there anyway?" "That device somehow malfunctioned. Apparently it operates on the same principle as Minato's Hiraishin, hence the sudden appearance of that creature in a completely sealed laboratory." "So, have we moved?" "I don't know, I'm telling you, something went wrong. We didn't move, but rather shifted." "And what do you think this means?" "How should I know?" The demon was indignant. "Go and check why you even dove into the subconscious, if you don't know where you were thrown and what happened to your body, so get out of here," he finally barked, throwing the Jinchuriki into the outside world. The second attempt to open my eyes and move was successful, but my body continued to hurt. "Be patient for a bit, I'll patch it up now only." "Okay, that's later." The demon directed his energy through the chakra circulation channels, healing the damage, but the recovery was difficult. The poisonous chakra burned much more than usual and all the time tried to harm, not help. It seemed to Naruto that this torture lasted for several days, as if instead of the usual chakra of the demon partner, hot iron was sent through his veins and channels. But suddenly it all ended. "I'm done. You should sleep, but first come down to me," the fox said wearily. Taking his friend's advice, Naruto closed his eyes again. At first, he couldn't concentrate, but after a few attempts, Uzumaki found himself in a completely empty space again. "So what did you want to tell me?" the ninja asked cautiously. "Didn't you notice anything strange when you woke up?" Kyubi grinned. I was in pain and I seemed to be on the verge of chakra exhaustion. What do you think I could have noticed?" the blonde said discontentedly, and immediately came to his senses. "Wait, there were only a couple of fractures and bruises, but it hurt as if the bija had been extracted from me again?" It finally dawned on me. How do you think with your pain threshold, a couple of cracks in your bones can cause so much anxiety? And chakra depletion on top of that? You! And what does that mean? The blonde frowned with displeasure. "Remember, I said that something could have happened to your body, and because of that, your subconscious fell apart?" Having waited for his partner to nod, Kyubi continued. "Well, now I know exactly what happened." Don't make me nervous. Why are you pulling the bija's tail?" "Speak already, furry, Databeo," The demon hesitated at the guy's exclamation. In general, you and I ended up in another body, hence the collapsed subconscious and the negative reaction to my chakra. Okay, stop. And now one more time for the idiots, so to speak, the ANBU captain said, dumbfounded. What do you mean another body? Soul transfer. Apparently, those obelisks work like that. They tore your soul out of your body. But according to Shinigami law, a living soul cannot exist without a body, so you were carried away to someone else's. Apparently its previous owner was morally depressed or was on the verge of death. And since I am closely connected to your subconscious, I was sucked in along with you, but this body does not have Uzumaki genes, is not a shinobi and does not have fully developed chakra channels, so it is surprising that it was not destroyed at the cellular level the moment we were brought here. But how could this happen? Only the descendants of Uzumaki can tolerate your chakra, right? I don't know. It looks like someone tried to make sure everything went smoothly. How else to explain it? Okay then, don't bother me with your theories. Better tell me what's up with the body. The shinobi finally came to his senses. He believed his partner right away, since the demon said another body, it meant another body. Who knows how many different jutsu there are in the world? Now it was more important to figure out where he was and whether the area was safe. The fox listened to his feelings and suddenly bared his teeth sarcastically. Well, rejoice, hero of all shinobi, the fox began solemnly, you are in the body of a 10-year-old boy. The demon finished solemnly in a deadly serious tone. Kurama! The blonde's unctuous voice made the strongest of the bijus shudder. QB certainly didn't expect such a reaction. For your own good, I hope you were joking. How could this happen? And why the Jubi, did this idiotic portal even work? The Jinchuriki began to panic slightly. Why are you asking me about this? I'm interested myself. But you know, something tells me that someone put us here on purpose. And who could it be? The fox thought that for the first time he heard bloodthirsty notes in his Jinchuriki's voice. Well, someone powerful enough, that's for sure. Someone like old man Rakuto. You better think about what you're going to do. After all, we don't know this world at all. The nine-tailed was clearly irritated by this state of affairs. What do you mean we don't know this world? The Jinchuriki became wary. That's what it means, the Bijou grinned discontentedly, listening to his feelings. I told you another world, in human language, what don't you understand? Okay, that's enough news for me for today. If we're safe now, then fine, I'll figure out the rest later, the guy said tiredly, closing his eyes. He was already pretty tired of hanging in an incomprehensible void, and Uzumaki decided to try to change it. Whose subconscious is this anyway? The Jinchuriki himself did not notice how he fell into meditation. After half an hour of thinking, he finally created the desired picture in the smallest details. Opening his eyes, he saw the result of his labors. Now he and the fox were in a sunlit forest clearing, with huge trees towering along the edges, their crowns lost in the sky, and their roots creating small caves similar to the one Team 7 had once hidden in after their battle with Orochimaru during the Chunin exams. The entire forest created by Naruto was somewhat reminiscent of the Forest of Death, but there was one significant difference: it was quiet and cozy here. Not bad. I like it, the fox said thoughtfully, looking around. As soon as the shinobi secured the image, he heard the sound of water. And here is the chakra. Let's go and have a look. Having overcome the forest, they came out to a large lake, on the other side of which a wide waterfall thundered. This is much better than the sewer. The fox was clearly a little dumbfounded by what he saw, watching the water that fell from a great height into the lake. You know, I was able to heal almost all the damage to this body, but one scar worries me. It's like it was burned by poisonous chakra. Kurama suddenly began, lounging on the shore. I see. Do you think there's someone like a Bijou here? No, it looks more like a fuin or a mental bookmark. After some time, the Bijou continued. I also discovered something while you were meditating. I think you will find it interesting. The strongest of the tailed beasts grinned. Deep in the forest, in the roots of a giant oak tree, a huge sphere was hidden, as if created from molten metal. This was the fire chakra that the Jinchuriki had once drawn from the fox. Well, what is this? The shinobi asked in surprise, also remembering the ball of demonic chakra. I think these are the memories of a previous soul. Memories? Yes, apparently, the The previous owner of the body died, but his residual memories have not yet completely dissipated, explained the demon, earning a strange look from his partner. Don't look at me like that. I could, of course, launch into a lengthy explanation with jaw-dropping terminology. But do you need it? As soon as the ANBU approached the sphere, it instantly absorbed him, and an uncontrollable stream of memories of an unknown boy poured into the blonde's head. Uzumaki felt like he was watching a movie about someone else's life, but at the same time he felt everything as if it was happening to him. He saw everything that this boy had experienced before him. A life full of humiliation and hatred, guardians who beat the little boy for any offense, and sometimes just because of a bad mood, an idiot cousin to whom the timid child could not fight back, the disgusting attitude of peers who simply sang along with Dudley, and the careless attitude of the surrounding adults. Not only memories, but feelings were imprinted in the shinobi's head. This boy's life was too similar to his own childhood. "Naru, how are you?" The fox was very concerned about the condition of his Jinchuriki. "I'll have to prove to everyone again that I'm worth taking into account." The blonde smiled tensely before hanging up. "Jubi, it seems that losing consciousness over trifles will soon become my bad habit," Naruto croaked hoarsely as soon as he came to his senses. "One of many," the fox responded phlegmatically, having already managed to look through his newly acquired memories. "Do you remember?" Even if the fox didn't specify what exactly he meant, the Jinchuriki understood him perfectly. "Yes, but my head is in such a mess now that I don't really understand where I am. 2 lives have mixed into one." "Okay, let's figure it out. What's your name?" "Naruto?" the blonde responded somewhat uncertainly. Okay. Who are your parents?" "Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze." "What happened to them?" Fox began asking questions more confidently, believing in a lucky coincidence, but here disappointment awaited him. "They died in a car accident." "Well, it's worse." The fox sighed heavily. "Sit down and meditate, we'll figure it out." After some time, the memories of the 2 lives were clearly separated, and Naruto could now access the boy's memory at any time, but his own memories remained with him. A nasty voice and a knock on the door tore from the shinobi's subconscious. "Harry Potter, how much longer are you going to sleep, ungrateful boy? Get up immediately and make breakfast for Vernon, he's late." "Well, hello, new life, and I'm so unlucky that I ended up in such a story," Naruto thought sourly. "Well, hello, new life, and how could I possibly end up in such a mess?" Naruto thought sadly, getting up from the uncomfortable bed and trying to find his glasses on the bedside table. "Be patient, don't stick your head out. Remember that this body is weak and you shouldn't attract unnecessary attention." The fox muttered discontentedly, who was also not happy with this situation, but they both understood that they couldn't do anything about it yet. "Yes, I know, but what's stopping me from changing everything?" Uzumaki grinned slyly. Finally, the search was successful, and the former blonde managed to find the ill-fated glasses. "Damn, can you do anything about my vision? I don't want to feel like Kabuto," Naruto asked discontentedly, remembering the gray-haired medic. "Don't flatter yourself, you're far from Kabuto, he had more brains," the fox chuckled. "You'll have to be patient, vision isn't like broken bones, restoring vision is a delicate and painstaking job." The shinobi didn't have time to answer. As soon as he got out of the cluttered closet, a loud stomping was heard on the stairs, and then its source appeared, rolling down the steps like a plush ball and pushing the former Uzumaki and the current Potter, so hard that the fragile body hit the closet door. "You're so clumsy, Potter, that I almost feel sorry for you." The mocking voice of his cousin was incredibly irritating to the already nervous shinobi, who understood perfectly well that, despite all his acting talent, he would not be able to behave like a meek, downtrodden boy. "Better keep quiet," the demon hissed, cutting off all possible attempts to answer. "He'll just crush you with his carcass now." "Well, where have you been?" Uzumaki saved the voice of his beloved, and, hearing Petunia's call, he carefully walked around Dudley and slipped into the kitchen. "Are you really going to cook?" Kyubi asked suspiciously, fearing the consequences of the Jinchuriki's cooking. Without answering, the ANBU proudly walked into the kitchen. Then the boring everyday life dragged on. Uzumaki was forced to play the role of a downtrodden boy who obediently fulfills the whims of his stupid relatives. But Naruto would not be himself if he did not start to do mischief, at least from behind the corner, because the instinct of self-preservation did not allow him to act openly yet. After a month, the Dudley family was on edge due to a huge number of minor incidents. And despite all the impudence and openness of his pranks, the juvenile delinquent was never caught. As a result of the subversive activities of the former ANBU captain, the Dudley family was not only irritated by the failures, but also quarreled among themselves. With all their troubles, the Dudleys simply did not find time to remember the quiet Harry, who had become even more inconspicuous than before. Classes at school were easy since most of the subjects were familiar, and Uzumaki enthusiastically buried himself in books on history and political science. The structure of the new world was in many ways similar to his native one, as was the level of technology, although here they were more widespread. Perhaps this was due to the fact that there was no one here who would perform the functions of a shinobi, so people filled the free niche with various devices. And although there were no ninja with hidden villages here, there were firearms with the help of which wars were fought as successfully as in the Jinchuriki's home world. An unexpected discovery was the diversity of cultures, one of which was incredibly similar to the native one, although it had a number of differences. Due to the fact that it was impossible to find a deserted place near the house, and the boy knew the surroundings poorly, Uzumaki did not have the opportunity to train his new body. All that was left for the former ANBU was to warm up in the garden and try to meditate, dispersing chakra through the channels in an attempt to make them wider and more flexible. The boy's body had enough energy of its own for training. Therefore, Naruto's chakra and his own nine-tailed sealed, leaving only a small amount, with which the Kyuubi adapted the new body to its poisonous chakra. It's strange, this body had its own chakra, and that mutated guy from the lab also had developed SCI, but everything we've seen here doesn't give a hint of someone who practices Nishu, at least at the genin level? Is it really true that only a few people here have SCI? The fox once asked. I don't know, but on the other hand, something happened to that guy. He didn't mutate out of nowhere, did he? Maybe it's all classified here and is done at the state level? Something like the root of ANBU. Ah, Madara knows. In any case, we are currently denied access to such information, so let's sit quietly and train. The conversation that arose out of nowhere was soon forgotten. The days flowed dull and boring, forcing the guy to understand that he would not last long in such a state of inaction, and the Biju, sensing the state of his partner, began to fear that the Jinchuriki would do something stupid. But for now, the most unpredictable shinobi froze in a fragile balance, and Kyuubi was afraid to disturb it. This went on for several weeks until one day the guy discovered a strange letter in the general mail. Look, your name is there, the fox said in surprise, seeing the envelope with a seal. That's true. During this time the shinobi had already gotten used to responding to the new name. Strange, this envelope doesn't look like the ones I've seen here. The demon muttered thoughtfully. Do you feel it? It's emitting something familiar? Chakra. He did not receive an answer because of the disgusting, as always, exclamation. Potter, where's my newspaper? Vernon yelled, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea. I hope you choke on your tea, dear uncle. The brunette whispered quietly, and then added louder, I'm already bringing it, uncle. Already handing the newspaper into Vernon's hands, the Jinchuriki realized that he was still holding that letter in his hands. Here's Jubi. He only managed to think before the envelope was noticed by Dudley, who, despite his size, deftly pulled it out of Uzumaki's hands. Look, look! Harry Potter has received a letter! The child screamed. Give it back immediately! Naruto shouted, although he already understood that it was hopeless. Give me that, Dudley, Vernon said, his voice nasty and soft. As soon as he got the envelope and took one look at it, Vernon's face changed. First he turned pale, as if someone had wiped a wall with it, and then he turned red, and so on several times in a circle. He's just like a chameleon, maybe he used some kind of jutsu to change color? Naruto asked in a serious tone, already realizing that he wouldn't see the letter. No, I would have detected the movement of chakra. The demon responded just as seriously, but a moment later, unable to bear the expression on the boar's face, he shook his subconscious with a loud laugh. Naruto had to bite his lips. Shh! The Jinchuriki groaned, holding back the giggles that were threatening to escape. Petunia, look here! Naruto had never heard his uncle's voice sound so high. As strange as it may sound, but the ant, seeing the strange letter, also used the color change jutsu. "Look, Jubi, what's written there?" Uzumaki asked indignantly. "If you were smarter, you would have left the letter on the nightstand in the hallway. Or even better, you would have hidden it somewhere far away." The fox, who was also interested, muttered discontentedly. "If you're so smart, flea betting, why didn't you give me a good idea?" Uzumaki was indignant, having once again been blamed for all the problems. "At least sometimes you need to think with your own head, otherwise it's always Kurama, and Kurama." The demon cut in the same manner. After that day, the life of the Dudley family turned into a game of get it faster than. The letters came in an endless stream, and Vernon did his best to destroy them before they fell into the hands of the adopted child. Well, and the adopted child, in turn, tried to steal at least one. Oddly enough, the former NBU captain was unlucky, which unbearably angered not only Uzumaki, but also the curious fox, whose caustic taunts now flowed in an endless stream. But one Sunday, when the house on Privet Drive was literally flooded with ill-fated letters, Vernon, flushed with anger, ordered Petunia to pack her things. Of course I knew Vernon was crazy, but to such an extent, what was written there that was so important that he took it upon himself to make sure that not a single one fell into my hands. Naruto grumbled for the umpteenth time, sitting on the floor of a dilapidated house, a storm raging outside the windows, and a mercilessly leaking roof. The hand of the old clock was lazily creeping towards 12 when a roar was heard that was clearly not the result of a storm. Who would think of trying to get to a tiny island through choppy water in this weather? Harry thought absently, already realizing that the noise was nothing more than a knock on the door. An even bigger lunatic than your uncle. Although, where could he be anymore? The fox muttered sleepily, but then suddenly perked up and drawled, well. "What's the matter, Ku?" The Jinchuriki demon noticed his confusion. "The person who is about to break into this hovel." The door flew off its hinges, which did not bother the bijou at all. "Has a well-developed SCI. Fox finished as if nothing had happened. And a flash of lightning illuminated the huge figure standing in the doorway. "Sorry I knocked, but no one answered," the giant said embarrassedly. "Well, wow, next to him even the fourth Raikage might seem like a dwarf." Naruto was surprised, remembering the by no means small dimensions of the head of Kumogakure. "That's true, but AI will finish him off with one blow. He has a tough character, and this one, you can tell right away, is a loser." Kyubi responded immediately. The giant slowly walked into the hut, and then with one swing he returned the door to its place. He doesn't look much like a shinobi." "What are you doing?" Vernon squeaked, pointing a gun that had appeared out of nowhere at the giant. "Get out of here immediately." "Shut up, Dudley, you bastard." The giant, without straining himself, bent the barrel of the gun. "So where is the birthday boy, where is Harry?" the guest asked more kindly. "Well, let's say here, the boy, who was sitting right on the floor, with one leg bent at the knee, responded phlegmatically. "What do I owe it to?" he continued in the same manner. "Sorry, I didn't notice you right away. Here, happy birthday." The giant responded as if nothing had happened, handing the boy a small box, which Uzumaki carefully accepted. "Forgive me, but you and I are in an unequal position. You know me, but I can't even guess who you are?" Now the boy who was suspiciously examining the alien looked the least like the frightened child the giant imagined, and he wanted to hide from his piercing gaze. "Idiot, what are you doing? Relax already, or your ki will crush them to the ground," Fox hissed, trying to calm the shinobi. He didn't understand why his Jinchuriki was so hostile to the good-natured giant. The ANBU captain didn't let his anger spill out, but inside there was a furious flame raging, which the demon could feel perfectly well. "Why are you so angry?" "He doesn't show hostility." "You don't understand. We still don't know what happened to the soul of the real Potter. Maybe he really did die before we were sucked into that portal. And no one cared. And now suddenly, some yokai shows up and says, 'Happy birthday!' As if that's how it should be." Naruto was getting angrier. Where was he when he was really needed? The strongest bijou hadn't seen many cases where Uzumaki had become so furious. "Naruto, calm down. You're an ANBU captain, pull yourself together," Fox barked. "My name is Rubius Hagrid, keeper of the keys and gardens of Hogwarts." The giant replied, then walked over to the fireplace and casually lit a fire, waving his umbrella. "Did you see that, Kurama?" Naruto asked, calming down a bit, and just like the fox, he felt a small surge of chakra. "I came to escort you to school," Hagrid continued in the same tone. "Hogwarts? School? What does that mean?" The ninja frowned. "Didn't you get the letter?" the gamekeeper asked in surprise, and when he received a negative answer, he glared unkindly at the Dursleys, who were huddled together in fear. "Well, I suppose that can be fixed," Hagrid finished, taking another letter out of his pocket. Uzumaki carefully took the letter, broke the seal, casually noting that it was emitting the same radiation as the first one, and then read its contents, which read, "Dear Mr. Potter, we inform you that you have been accepted to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. You're a wizard, Harry." Naruto didn't answer, trying to figure out what all this meant. Having combed through all available sources of information in search of any mention of something similar to Nishu, he eventually came to the conclusion that, apart from the pseudoscientific nonsense of local charlatans, no knowledge of Nishu or what once replaced it in this world had been preserved, and if it had been preserved, then only in secret military institutes that were not so easy to get to, and now some clumsy, narrow-minded blockhead showed up on the doorstep and declared that he would just take him to a school where they teach all this. And Uzumaki could have decided that this was some kind of joke or a trick, but Kurama stubbornly insisted that Hagrid had developed SCI. Vernon suddenly intervened in the conversation, his exclamation finally shattering all doubts to smithereens. "He's not going anywhere!" he squealed, confirming that this school wasn't such a secret place. "What difference does it make to you whether I go or not? You should be glad to be rid of me." The newly minted wizard frowned. "When we took you in, we swore to put an end to this abnormal," Petunia hissed. "My sister was like that, and when she met Potter, she gave birth to you, and I knew even then that you would be just as strange, just as abnormal. Just look, a little more and she will start spitting poison." The demon laughed nervously, watching Petunia. "Naruto, it seems that no matter the world, human stupidity has no limits. Now I understand the behavior of these people. They were simply afraid that the boy took after his parents." The fox growled, remembering the distant past of his Jinchuriki. "Who were my parents?" Despite the fact that these people were not relatives for Uzumaki, he partially adopted the feelings of the real Harry Potter. "You didn't tell him anything?" asked the gamekeeper, starting to get angry. "Lily and James Potter died as heroes, and their son is famous throughout the wizarding world. At Hogwarts, they will make an excellent wizard out of him," shouted the giant. "So, Harry, are you coming?" he asked more gently. "Of course," the most unpredictable shinobi answered without hesitation, having long ago decided to take advantage of the chance given to him to make his dull life more interesting. "But where are we going? Straight to Hogwarts?" Potter asked the next morning. "No. First we need to buy everything you need to practice magic. And the fastest way to do this is in Diagon Alley. But first we need to get to the Leaky Cauldron," the keykeeper explained happily. Along the way, the shinobi managed to find out a lot from Hagrid, carefully asking leading questions. The forester turned out to be a chatterbox and was happy to answer questions. Sometimes he would start talking about things that, as Kurama decided, were not intended for children's ears, but he could come to his senses only after he had blurted out a third of the information. "A chatterbox is a godsend for a shinobi," Kurama said then. Finally they arrived. The motorcycle landed in one of the alleys of London. Hagrid headed to an inconspicuous building with a sign saying, "The Leaky Cauldron," which, as it turned out a little later, was an ordinary third-rate pub just like those in which Jiraiya liked to hang out in the evenings with a bottle of sake. As the half-giant and the boy entered the room, the man standing behind the bar called out, "Hello, Hagrid, the usual?" "No, thank you, Tom, I'm at work, accompanying young Mr. Potter shopping." After these words, the entire hall fell silent. Many eyes stared at the boy, who had to feign embarrassment, due to the fact that the former shinobi simply did not know how to react to such attention from the magicians. "Here's Jubi, demon rip you apart. They don't hide their chakra at all." Fox winced from the concentration of different chakra. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter." A short man broke the silence as he approached the boy and shook his hand. "Harry P. Potter is very happy, very happy." Another man in a funny, awkward turban approached them, stuttering loudly. Harry, this is Professor Quirrell. He will be teaching defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts this year. Hagrid introduced the wizard kindly. Ugh, if this is a defense teacher, then I'm afraid to even imagine what he'll teach how to defend against. Kurama growled. Be quiet, do you feel it? There's a piece of someone else's chakra in it, that's what stinks. Naruto responded. Is it like a Jinchuriki? The demon asked, also trying to probe the professor. No, it seems to be some kind of parasite. The shinobi responded uncertainly. Yeah, I found it, by the way. The chakra of this parasite is similar to the residual chakra in your scar, which I couldn't heal. Okay, we'll figure it out later. Uzumaki hissed at the Biju. Nice to meet you, Professor, Potter said, putting a welcoming smile on his face. We have to go, Harry. Excuse me, Professor, Hagrid said, pushing the boy towards the back door, which revealed a plain brick wall surrounding them on 3 sides. Hagrid, are we really going this way? Uzumaki asked incredulously. Yes, I'll remember now. The forester approached the wall and began to hit individual stones of the masonry in a certain order. As soon as he stopped, the wall began to move, finally opening a passage. It was as if another world had opened up behind the wall. People in strange clothes were scurrying along the streets, which Naruto seemed ridiculous even in comparison with the muggle clothes that Uzumaki had already gotten used to, and at every step there were various shops with bright signs. Wow, this is Diagon Alley? == 4. 3 Chapter 2.0 == Oh, so this is Diagon Alley? Potter said admiringly, not at all surprised by the magical side of Britain, but by the abundance of people with chakra. So, do you have a list of what you need? Hagrid asked, enjoying the effect he had produced. Yes, but there is one problem. How will I pay for all this? First, we'll stop by the bank. Your parents have taken care of you, the giant explained, heading towards the huge, massive building in the center. It towered majestically over the others and, unlike them, stood out not for its motley variety, but for its orderly severity. Wow, it's like the entire Uzumaki clan worked here, in their best years. The fox's surprise knew no bounds. The nine-tailed was amazed by the level of protection of the building. Gringotts Bank, you won't find a safer place, except maybe Hogwarts. The keeper of the keys confirmed the demon's words. The entrance to the bank was guarded by 2 strange creatures of small stature, as Hagrid later explained, goblins. Once inside, the forester immediately headed towards one of those who sat here at the high tables. When the giant demanded to take them to the vault, Uzumaki tensed up, fearing that the protection might work on a soul that did not belong to this body. But despite his fears, nothing happened, and the Jinchuriki assumed that in this world they did not assume the possibility of transmigration of souls or transfer of the mind from body to body. We're lucky they don't probe the subconscious. I'm afraid to imagine how the mages would react to a huge 9-tailed demon fox in a child's subconscious. Uzumaki chuckled nervously. I think that the sight of a certain blonde A&B would have impressed them as well. Kyubi grinned, reminding them that in his subconscious, the 24-year-old Jinchuriki looked the same as in his home world. This dialogue lasted until they went down into the underground storage facilities and took the required amount. Hagrid also helped to sort out the local prices. As the goblin who accompanied them headed to the next storage, Naruto noticed how the forester tensed up, taking a small package from the huge safe. Naruto was unable to find out what was in it, but judging by the giant's behavior, it was something extremely important. Finally, all business in Gringotts was finished. Hagrid, spitting on his duties as an escort, rushed off to improve his health. And for Naruto, the most terrible torture began: a shopping trip. The upcoming prospect of buying all sorts of robes, books, writing materials, horrified the ninja who had seen a lot. Only after several hours of wandering around various shops the torture ended. Almost everything that was necessary was bought, with the exception of one thing: a magic wand. So you need to come here, to Ollivander's shop. You can buy a wand from him. Hagrid, who had come up a few minutes ago, gave the information. Following the guide's directions, Potter headed towards the shop with the dusty display case, making a mental note that Ollivander's shop was most likely the only place in London where you could buy a magic wand, at least legally, since the owner didn't care at all about advertising. The bell above the door rang melodically, but no one appeared in sight. The counter was empty. But there was definitely someone in the shop itself. "Sorry," Harry said hesitantly, and after a few minutes of waiting, a small, thin old man appeared from behind the shelves. "How can I help you, mister?" The man paused meaningfully, looking at the visitor with light gray, almost white eyes. "Potter," the visitor said, mentally shuddering at that look. "Brrr, it's like I was hit with a Bakugan. Unexpected. Very unexpected. However, it's probably even better this way." Ollivander drawled thoughtfully, taking a tape measure from the table, and then, after taking the necessary measurements, retreated into the depths of the shop. What is he even talking about? QB was surprised by the old shopkeeper's behavior. Kagaya knows what he could have seen, if he saw anything at all. The main thing is that he doesn't say anything unnecessary. The ANBU exhaled tiredly. "Well, maybe this one will suit you," the master said, holding several oblong boxes in his hands, and he handed one of them to the young wizard. Naruto hesitantly picked up the wand with a light body. "Wave your wand," the old man ordered. Following the shopkeeper's words, the shinobi waved it slightly, but nothing happened. After that, the sticks in the hands of the Jinchuriki replaced each other, but none of them suited him. Some ignored the future magician, others were capricious and willful. "An interesting case," Ollivander drawled thoughtfully. "This is the first time this has happened to me. I'm confused," the old man muttered, disappearing again into the depths of the shop. "Well, what do you mean by that? This old man is strange." Naruto sighed. "Maybe this one will suit you. Although she doesn't want to listen to anyone at all. To be honest, I've already despaired of finding a wizard for her." The old man handed another box to the boy, who hesitantly touched the wand. Naruto immediately felt a light discharge run through his fingers, pleasantly tingling his skin, and at the same moment the wand began to shine with a soft light. "Unexpected. Ebony and phoenix feather, 12 inches, it fits you perfectly. You are a very unusual person, Mr. Potter." The hesitation the old master made when pronouncing his name did not escape Uzumaki. As soon as Naruto paid, he immediately hurried out of the shop. "Oh, it's a pity they don't use sealing scrolls here," Uzumaki drawled, imagining how good it would be to fit all the purchases that had formed a large pile into one small scroll, and not into a bulky school chest, even though it had weak space expansion charms on it. "Once you restore your previous form, you will be the first in this world to use Fuinjutsu." The demon grinned. "I hope Hogwarts has a quiet place to train," Naruto said dreamily, already fed up with his own weakness. No, he did physical exercises, of course, like squats or push-ups, but he did it carefully so as not to attract unnecessary attention. Unfortunately, for an elite shinobi, albeit in a child's body, this was not enough. Now he was developed a little better than his peers athletes from the Muggle school, but this is not enough even for an average genin, so Uzumaki's active nature, accustomed to driving himself during training to a half-dead state, was bored. The only thing he was able to achieve during his entire stay in this world was good chakra control, but even this did not suit the guy. Hagrid said that magic is mostly done with wands, wandless magic is extremely rare, thought the fox. "I don't understand them, it's inconvenient." The former shinobi was indignant, hoping that in this world he would be able to master his techniques again and improve his physical condition, now of his body. "Don't be sad, Blondie, we'll get through this." QB grinned, noticing that Uzumaki had become despondent. "Say that again, you flea-stained rug." The guy flared up immediately. Where did his restraint as an elite shinobi captain go? A mock squabble started in his subconscious. The next day, Uzumaki managed to talk Hagrid out of returning him to the house on Privet Drive, so Naruto spent the rest of the time before the start of the school year, having received a ticket for the Hogwarts Express from the giant, in a rented room in the Leaky Cauldron, studying the books he had bought for days on end and only occasionally walking around both the magical and ordinary parts of London. The month flew by almost unnoticed, and the day of sending to school arrived. "There is no such platform, and why didn't he walk me to the train?" Uzumaki was angry at the half-giant, realizing that he might be late for departure. "So platform 9 3/4. It's here, let's go faster." Suddenly he heard the voice of some woman who was urging on red-haired teenagers. Uzumaki followed the red-haired family quietly, pushing a heavy cart. He didn't go close to them, but he watched them closely. "Kurama, I think I'm hallucinating," he said, dumbfounded, when he saw two identical guys disappear one after the other right into the wall. "This wall is an illusion, and behind it is probably the platform. 9 3/4. So, what are you going to risk?" "What else can I do?" the blonde answered, slightly stunned. Having waited until the representatives of the red-haired family disappeared from sight, he took a deep breath, accelerated the cart and sent it straight into the wall. A second of trembling and tingling in the body, and opening his eyes, Potter saw a completely different place, and above the platform the desired sign. "Hogwarts Express, platform 9 3/4. Children of different ages were running around. Some were boarding the train, some, who had already managed to get settled, went out to say goodbye to relatives. Harry had no one to say goodbye to, and he went in search of a free compartment, which was crowned with success only after a few minutes. The compartment was completely free and the boy was able to settle in comfortably. About 20 minutes later the train set off, picking up speed. Suddenly the door opened slightly, and a red head appeared in the resulting opening. Uzumaki remembered him. It was his mother who attracted the attention of the shinobi at the station. "Hi, can I come in? Everywhere else is taken," the boy asked. "I don't mind," Potter replied, not taking his eyes off the passing landscape. The redhead happily shook his head and awkwardly stumbled into the compartment, and then, not noticing the apathetic mood of his neighbor, began to chat happily. Uzumaki wasn't listening, but the professional shinobi habit of paying attention to information was making itself felt. The lanky boy was chattering about how great it would be to study at Hogwarts, what his older brothers had told him, and how he, like his entire family, would definitely study in Gryffindor, and finally, in the endless stream of meaningless information, slipped out. "I'm Ron Weasley, by the way, and you?" He finally noticed the identity of his neighbor. "Harry Potter," Naruto replied, realizing that the annoying fellow traveler would not leave him alone. Weasley reacted as expected. He instantly fell silent and stared at the brunette. The former ANBU couldn't help but notice the attention from the wizards in the leaky cauldron, so one day he caught Hagrid and extracted all the interesting information about himself from him. "Is it true? Do you have?" Rizik fell silent and looked around, as if expecting something. "A scar?" he finally asked in a whisper. "Yes, so what next?" Potter frowned, not looking away from the window. "What do you mean?" "You're Harry Potter. Everyone knows you," Ron continued to admire. "Well, they know. What next?" the brunette asked again, amused by the redhead's reaction, who clearly didn't know what to answer. Well, he looks like you when you were a child, by the way." The fox grinned. "Well, thank you, Flea House," the shinobi responded with a snort. "Tell me, do you remember anything about that night?" the redhead couldn't help but ask, making QB grin again. "Ron, I was just over a year old, what can I remember?" "And let's not ask me about it anymore?" Harry asked tiredly, making it clear that he was not comfortable with this conversation. "Sorry," Weasley said, embarrassed, but it seemed to him that he shouldn't ask about this. "Want something sweet, boys?" asked an elderly woman with a grocery cart, breaking the awkward silence. "No, I have everything with me," Weasley said, embarrassed, muttering something about sandwiches. Intrigued, Uzumaki bought some cauldron buns, pumpkin cookies, and Bertie Bott's candies, categorically refusing the chocolate frogs, the mere mention of which brought to mind the culinary masterpieces of Shimabie-chan. Having treated his neighbor, he decided to break the silence. "You come from a family of wizards, don't you?" Harry waited for an inarticulate before continuing. "Can you tell me about Hogwarts?" Despite the fact that the shinobi had purchased Hogwarts, a history, and then read it cover to cover, he still wanted to know more, and someone's personal opinion was much more interesting than dry facts. "And what exactly are you interested in?" the red-haired man asked, apparently with difficulty, suppressing the urge to start talking about everything at once. "Well, for example, I know that Professor Quirrell will be teaching defense against the dark arts this year. But what else will they teach us?" When asked about lessons, Weasley immediately deflated and looked a little pitifully at the hero of Magical Britain. "We haven't even arrived yet, And you're already talking about school. The boy pouted. That's not interesting, is it? He drawled. How about I tell you about Quidditch? Quidditch? What is it? Potter asked again, trying to remember where it was mentioned, but he didn't have time. Inspired by the question, the redhead had already started giving out information at a furious speed, as if afraid that they would stop listening to him. Or maybe that was how it was. But despite this, he told it very clearly and in detail, so that even a completely uninitiated person could understand. Have you seen a toad? A boy named Neville lost a toad. A girl entered through the half-open door, interrupting Ron's story. By the way, there are rumors that Harry Potter is traveling in this compartment. My name is Hermione Granger, let's get acquainted. The girl was short, with brown eyes and a tousled shock of chestnut hair. Harry. Uzumaki introduced himself after thinking for a bit. And this is Ron Weasley. The red-haired man responded, frowning, still unhappy with the interruption. I advise you to look for a toad near the toilets. Naruto responded, remembering Hermione's first question. Thank you, I will do so. She smiled in response, and before leaving the compartment she reminded him. You should change into your uniform. We will be there soon. After Granger left, the conversation somehow died down on its own. Ron began to doze off, lulled by the rhythmic clatter of the wheels. And Naruto decided to think a little about how wizards differ from shinobi, besides the fact that they do not want to develop physically. From what he had read in the textbooks, he was already able to draw a conclusion and form an initial opinion about the school of magicians and understand why that creature from the laboratory had such an excess of spiritual energy. The local analogs of shinobi magicians do not pay any attention to physical training. I thought about it in my free time and having figured out the principle of operation of magic wands, came to the conclusion that these very wands are a kind of conductors for chakra, concentrating energy. Magicians have an imbalance of yin and yang energy, and wands help stabilize this balance. The demon began to reflect, sharing his observations with the Jinchuriki. So they just have terrible chakra control? That's if we speak in human language. The partner grinned, agreeing with the nine-tailed one in other respects. And those who use wandless magic control their energy a little better than others. However, it is too early to draw conclusions, these are just our assumptions. Okay, Professor Kurama. Thank you for the informative lecture. Uzumaki finished the conversation, noticing that the train began to slow down. Here, it seems we have arrived. Having woken up their red-haired fellow traveler and leaving all their things in the compartment, the new Hogwarts students headed for the exit. First-year students, come to me! The voice of the already familiar Uzumaki, the half-giant, thundered over the crowd of children. == 5. For Chapter 2.0, Okay, first years, come to me! The voice of the half-giant, already familiar to Harry, thundered. Hagrid towered over the crowd of children like a tower, holding a huge lantern above himself. Having gathered all the first years, he headed towards the lake. Naruto noticed something odd. While the first years were led to the boats, the older guys headed towards the carts, which were pulled by strange animals that looked like horses, and none of the students paid any attention to them. Hagrid, what kind of animals are these? Uzumaki asked when he was finally able to get close to the forester. Hearing the question, the giant lost his step and looked at Potter in surprise. Is something wrong? The Jinchuriki asked again, realizing that he shouldn't have been so curious. You see them? The key-keeper whispered in surprise, leaning towards Harry. Yes. And what shouldn't he? Curiosity still got the better of him, and the shinobi continued asking questions, deciding that nothing terrible would happen. You see, Harry, the thing is, these are thestrals. The gamekeeper began very quietly, obviously choosing his words carefully. And they can only be seen by those who have seen death. He finished after a short pause. Yes, you shouldn't have asked. Now unnecessary questions may arise. The fox frowned, his mind stirring excitedly. I didn't know. Naruto was indignant, although he acknowledged the truth of his partner's words. Luckily, Hagrid didn't ask any questions and Uzumaki was able to catch his breath, although not for long. Don't relax, the demon ordered. Yes, you're right, Hagrid might ignore it, But who knows if someone smarter might be interested in this fact of my biography. The ANBU frowned. Lost in his thoughts, he didn't even notice how the crowd, led by the giant, reached the pier. Do you feel it? This lake is full of living beings with chakra, and even the water itself is saturated with it. QB whispered in admiration as the line of boats moved towards the castle. Yes, and there is also some kind of technique placed on the lake that puts a seal on new arrivals, Uzumaki responded, stealthily examining the unknown technique. A bookmark? Kurama tensed up, ready to burn the alien equipment at any second. No, it seems to be some kind of pass. Remember the defensive technique around Konoha? There seems to be something similar on the lock. A protective dome with a friend or foe system, Naruto explained thoughtfully. At last the small fleet of boats reached the other shore. The castle that appeared before the new arrivals was striking in its massiveness and majesty. Shouts of admiration ran through the ranks of the first years. Look, does this remind you of anyone? The fox grinned, noticing the white-haired boy standing a little away from the others. The blonde tried to show with his whole appearance how unimpressed he was by the ancient building of the best magical school in Britain. But somewhere at the bottom of his gray eyes there was a carefully concealed admiration. Images from his childhood swam before Uzumaki's eyes. For some reason, he remembered his first day at the Shinobi Academy. The newcomers looked around in admiration and excitedly chattered about what great ninjas they would become. Only one black-haired boy stood to the side and looked a little sullenly at the disorderly crowd of future ninjas. Few could notice that, despite his detached appearance, he, like the others, was barely holding back his anticipation, every now and then glancing sideways at the teenager standing next to him, suspiciously similar to the boy himself. And so the boring everyday life at the academy drags on. This boy again, he sits by the window and intently writes down the words of the sensei, trying to remember as much as possible. He is a little arrogant and, as it later became clear, ambitious. However, he had the right to do so, because he is the best in the class. Only all the feigned arrogance and detachment immediately evaporated somewhere as soon as the older brother appeared on the horizon, every day, despite the workload, meeting Ototo after classes. But then, suddenly, everything ends. The teenager no longer comes to the academy, does not meet Ototo after classes. And the boy himself no longer hurries home, and the previously difficult-to-maintain cold mask now seems to have grown to his face. Impenetrable darkness has settled in his black eyes, thirsting for the blood of one single person, the blood of the one who previously caused only admiration and adoration. Years later, it would become clear how terrible the wound on his soul was. Bleeding throughout his life, and after many mistakes made along the way, so terrible that anyone else would have gone mad from pain and disappointment. But not him. He endured and was able to step over himself, collecting his own soul from fragments. He broke out of the suffocating darkness and, like a fairy tale phoenix rising from the ashes, soared to the skies to meet the bright sun. Indeed. Uzumaki smiled bitterly, shaking off his stupor. Lost in his memories, Uzumaki didn't understand how he found himself in front of a wide staircase. Harry, what faculty do you want to go to? Weasley asked. The Jinchuriki didn't have time to answer. So, it's true that the great Harry Potter has come to Hogwarts? A mocking voice sounded behind him. Turning around, the shinobi saw the blonde he had noticed earlier. I see you haven't realized yet that not all wizards in our world are the same. The boy continued, glancing at the redhead who was still standing next to the hero of the shinobi world and, as it turned out, of this world as well. I'll help you. The blonde finished, holding out his hand to Uzumaki. I'm Draco. Draco Malfoy. Indeed. The same arrogant bastard. The nine-tailed snorted in his subconscious. I remember very well why you don't like the Uchiha clan. But could you please not talk about Sasuke like that? The Jinchuriki asked calmly, trying to remember where he had heard Draco's name. PFF. Uzumaki was ready to swear that in response to his words the demon only grimaced in displeasure. He is pure blood, remember, Hagrid once hinted at mudbloods? Fox muttered. In all worlds, representatives of noble blood boast of their origins, and those who do not come from a pedigree say that the purity of blood does not matter and that what matters is what you are as a person. But in reality, The only truth is that you can cut the throat of both, and no amount of blood purity will change the fact that both the beggar and the daimyo will die after that. Naruto snorted, shaking the hand of the pure blood. I hope that before it is too late, he will understand that pure blood means absolutely nothing. The ANBU captain said, grinning. And as if nothing had happened, smiling, he finished, nice to meet you, Draco. So, first years, please pay attention. My name is Minerva McGonagall. I am the head of Gryffindor House and the Transfiguration teacher. Please follow me. The elderly lady who appeared on the stairs said sternly and, turning around, walked down the stone corridor, confident that the crowd of children was following her. As soon as the woman reached the massive doors, she stopped. Now the ceremony of distribution into faculties will be held in the hall. I want you to understand the importance of this event. After her words, the doors swung open, revealing a huge hall before the future wizards. The lady, having walked across the entire hall, climbed up onto a small dais on which stood an ordinary chair without a back. But it was not this that attracted attention, but the old hat lying on it. Now I will call you one by one. As soon as you hear your name, come up to me and sit on the chair. I will put the sorting hat on your head, which will determine which faculty you will study in for the next 7 years. The Dean of Gryffindor began to name names, which, however, did not remain in Uzumaki's memory. He was more interested in what faculty their owners would enter. Naruto had already learned that there were only 4 faculties in Hogwarts, and that the students of each of them had special personal qualities, be it cunning or hard work. Hermione Granger. The consciousness latched onto the familiar name. Interesting. The shinobi muttered, remembering the girl from the train. She somehow vaguely resembled his pink-haired partner when she was still a child, the same deeply hidden uncertainty and desire to prove to everyone that she was not useless, independent and smart. Gryffindor, the hat exclaimed after thinking for a moment. Well, let's see what comes of this. The Jinchuriki remarked distantly, watching as the girl with brown hair headed towards the table of the red-bannered faculty. Don't you think it's unfair to these children? To compare them with those who never even existed in this world? Kyubi frowned, realizing that it was worth distracting his partner from his memories. In response to the Nine-Tailed words, the shinobi only shrugged his shoulders in irritation, admitting the fox was right. Ron Weasley. The stern lady's voice sounded, forcing Potter to return to reality. The red-haired boy, clearly worried, sat down on a chair, but as soon as the hat touched his head, she immediately began to mumble. So another Weasley, she drawled. I know where you belong. And then she shouted loudly. Gryffindor! As expected. Naruto smirked, remembering the redhead's words on the train. Have you decided which faculty you want to enroll in? The demon suddenly became interested. No, let's see where the hat sends me, the Jinchuriki said absently, watching as Malfoy, hearing his name, slowly rose to the dais. Before the hat had time to touch his platinum hair, it immediately exclaimed, Slytherin. After that, Draco walked slowly towards the table, under the flag with the snake. You decided to trust in chance? That's not like you, partner! Kurama was clearly amused by the situation, and he wasn't going to hide it. The next name pronounced by the Dean of Gryffindor caused silence in the hall. Absolutely everyone fell silent, even the teachers, who had been quietly talking among themselves until then. Harry Potter. Sometimes chance makes absolutely unexpected somersaults that lead to unpredictable turns, and this is what gives life that incomparable spice. After all shinobi are adrenaline maniacs, in their own way. As he climbed the platform to the Dean of Gryffindor, Anbu felt hundreds of interested glances on himself. Some looked with admiration, some with envy, and some with hostility, but there was not a single indifferent one. Most of the admiring glances were from the Gryffindors, and the hostile and envious ones from Slytherin. Opinions were divided, once again pitting irreconcilable rivals against each other. As soon as the hat touched his head, Naruto felt a subtle mental interference. Once, after the war, Ino suggested that Uzumaki scan his mind for mental bookmarks. It was after this check that the 2 remaining elders of Konoha were accused of treason. The Jinchuriki's mind was literally littered with old, completely different bookmarks. On loyalty to the village, on loyalty to the elders in Danzo, on limiting intelligence and reducing learning ability, on trust in the third. Some parts of memory were blocked, and some were completely false. Most of these bookmarks by that time had failed for various reasons. Some were burned out by poisonous demonic chakra, and some were simply broken by the will of the Jinchuriki. But there were also those that were completely intact. Ino got rid of them all, and then reported everything to Tsunade. As soon as the Senju princess found out about everything, she went into a rage, and having received ironclad evidence of guilt, she immediately got rid of the old men who were annoying to the point of gnashing her teeth. After this incident, Yamanaka conducted special training with Uzumaki to resist mental interference. Don't resist. A distant whisper sounded in his head. Oddly enough, Naruto decided to trust the ancient artifact and carefully opened his consciousness, but at the same time carefully controlling the artifact's actions and allowing only some parts of his memory. Who are you? The hat immediately exclaimed in surprise. You're not Potter. I am Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Demon Fox and a shinobi of Konohagakure no Sado. I am now the master of this body. The shinobi answered confidently, replaying the circumstances of his appearance in this world in his memory. I cannot return to my home world, and the real Harry Potter is most likely dead. Allow me to start my life anew as Harry Potter. Well, I see that you don't wish anyone harm, but at the same time, there is a lot of other people's blood on your hands. The hat said thoughtfully. That's the fate of a shinobi, and working in ANBU is an even dirtier occupation, but I only killed those who wanted to harm the people dear to me. The blonde calmly objected, although he did not deny what was already clear. He is a murderer. Well, I think I'll give you a chance. Dark times are coming and a boy named Harry Potter is destined to decide the fate of many people with his actions. I will watch you, Naruto Uzumaki, the hat said thoughtfully. And Naruto realized that this whole strange dialogue lasted only a few moments for those present in the hall. And a second later they heard, Slytherin! A ringing silence reigned in the hall, in comparison to which the one that was at the beginning seemed like a loud scream, but a split second later the Slytherin table exploded with thunderous applause. And Naruto felt their gloating directed at the Gryffindors and at the same time indignation and malice flared from the teacher's table. Why snakes? The shinobi asked calmly. Gryffindor won't give you anything new, and in Slytherin there are those whose fates you'll want to influence. Besides, you yourself aren't susceptible to other people's influence. The hat grinned. And? Naruto drawled suspiciously, realizing that this was just an excuse, but the hat only snorted mockingly in response. The Jinchuriki didn't have time to ask anything else. McGonagall took the hat off the boy who lived's head and glanced sideways at the teacher's table. Carefully following her gaze, Naruto came across the gloomy face of a gray-haired old man. Pretending to accidentally glance in the direction of the headmaster, Uzumaki headed to the Slytherin table, where they were already waiting for him. The old man seemed to expect something different. The demon noted cautiously. I suppose he wanted the hero of the magical world to study in Gryffindor. It seems that this is the faculty he favors. Besides, who would be happy that the conqueror of the terrible Dark Lord entered the faculty of Dark Wizards? It seems that this is the reputation of the Snake faculty. Naruto answered ironically, sit down at the table, now of your faculty. Yes, look at how the other faculties are looking at you sideways. It seems to me that the hat has given you a lot of unnecessary problems. Kyubi muttered discontentedly. When did you become such a bore, Kurama? Uzumaki narrowed his eyes suspiciously. I'm not a bore, I'm earning extra money as the voice of reason, since your own is on vacation. He bared his teeth at the comments of his Jinchuriki Biju. The only voice I'm listening to right now is the voice of my stomach, and I can barely hear you, red-haired schizophrenia. There's some kind of interference. Uzumaki drawled in response, happily starting on the food that had just appeared. Stomach slave! Fox said, and the shinobi stopped feeling the presence of the Biju. As soon as dinner was over, the head boy, a dark-skinned man of average height, invited the first years to follow him. The head boy, who introduced himself as William Caro, led the first years through the labyrinthine, dimly lit corridors, not saying a word along the way. As Naruto meandered through the dungeons, he glanced furtively at his classmates, simultaneously noting down the layout of the dungeons in his memory. Most of the new students were no different from each other, the same arrogant looks and sky-high self-importance. Most of the first years of Slytherin were from pure-blood families, but the rest were little different from aristocrats. Suddenly Uzumaki felt unobtrusive attention, Turning his head slightly, he noticed the thoughtful look of a thin, dark-haired boy. Catching his gaze for a second, Harry nodded briefly in greeting, and having received a nod in return, turned away. No one noticed how a thin smile appeared on the lips of the boy with the scar. Everything turned out to be not as bad as the shinobi thought. While Naruto watched his classmates, the class president led the group to a stone wall blocking the passage. William walked up to the stonework and spoke clearly. "The Serpent Salazar." The stones of the masonry began to move and opened an archway. "The passwords are changed every 2 weeks. Please do not forget to check the notice board," he said briefly, walking into the spacious living room. "This is the Slytherin common room. On the left is the boys' dormitory, on the right is the girls'. There are 4 people in each room. I also inform you that your things have already been delivered. They are waiting for you in your rooms. Tomorrow before classes you will receive a schedule of lessons. And now I ask everyone to go to their rooms," Karo announced in a businesslike manner. Harry got the impression that the prefect was trying to get rid of the first years as quickly as possible and go about his business. While Karo was making the announcement, Naruto had time to examine the furnishings in the common room: expensive tapestries on the walls, massive dark wood furniture, mostly with green trim. Naruto couldn't identify the source of the greenish light at first, but after looking closely, he realized that the light was coming from the windows overlooking the underground lake, which was studying this greenish glow. Despite the gloomy atmosphere, the living room was quite cozy. The search for a room did not take much time. Potter's neighbors turned out to be the already familiar Draco Malfoy and that thin dark-haired boy Theodore Nott, as well as a tall, dark-skinned brunette with brown eyes, who introduced himself as Blaze Zabini. Commentary to 5.4 Chapter 2.0. For those who are not familiar with the Naruto fandom, or simply forgot, shinobi can feel the directed gaze and the emotions embedded in it, and also having sufficient experience and strength they can project the necessary emotions, for example the thirst for murder, ki. Example, in the Forest of Death during the Chunin exam, Orochimaru crushed Sasuke and Sakura with his thirst for murder so that the children, out of fear, imagined their own death. == 6. 5 Chapter 2.0 Naruto's first day of school at Hogwarts began with him oversleeping. He was awakened by Malfoy's disgruntled voice. "Potter, have you decided that you can skip classes on the first day of school? It's commendable, of course, that you decided to miss out on the place of the best student, but I don't need such a head start," the blonde said, drawing out his words. "Well, no, I won't give in to you." Uzumaki chuckled sleepily in response, remembering how he said these words to a completely different person. About 20 minutes later, Draco and Harry burst into the potions classroom. "You were almost late," Nott remarked phlegmatically. "It's not my fault that some people, let's not point the finger at Malfoy, are completely confused about the castle corridors." Harry smiled mockingly, casually leaning back in his chair. "If someone hadn't overslept, we wouldn't have to rush so much," the blonde snapped. Potter only snorted mockingly in response, furtively watching the other students. Having found a familiar red-haired boy among the Gryffindors, Naruto wanted to say hello, but running into Weasley's frowning look, he changed his mind, noting that it would be worth talking to the boy later, who clearly took it badly that the hero of the magical world had entered the green faculty. But later now Ron wouldn't listen to anything. Distracted from his acquaintance, Potter continued his inspection. The row of desks by the windows was occupied by Gryffindors, the next one was occupied by Slytherins, thus the class was invisibly divided into 2 opposing sides.